question that I ask everyone to kick this off, and it's my favorite question to ask, is if you were in charge of changing the world and you wanted to inspire change with the team around you, and you had to pick 3 people, they can be alive, dead, famous, non-famous, who would be your 3 people?
Wow, the responsibility of being in charge of changing the world. Gosh, that's a heady thought, to be honest, Shannon. The first would be Dame Stephanie Shirley.
Okay.
Who is my absolute shiro in the IT industry. She is an incredible woman who is a phenomenal businesswoman. She's run and started obviously companies from scratch. I think she started her successful company, I think, was £6, I think, initially, and has become a really, really successful entrepreneur and businesswoman. And the reason I'm choosing her is, I think, one, for her business acumen, but also because of the way that she goes about things. So she's not only an entrepreneur, but she's also a philanthropist, and has set up obviously charities. And I think to date, I think her charities have given away 67 million, I think, in terms of helping people. And right at the heart of the ethics of how she works is really about giving back and looking after people, her employees, but also kind of a wider area. So I think she would definitely be my choice in terms of having a phenomenal businesswoman who has the right, has that view about care and compassion, humanity. Yeah, absolutely, as success. My second choice would be Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Again, she's an absolute powerhouse, and I think such an amazing lady. So thinking if I was going to have to change the world, I would probably need some legal, somebody with an amazing legal brain, and she obviously ticks those boxes, and then some, but also, again, just because of the type of person that she is, she's she's really helped thousands of men and women in the work that she's done. But also, I really like the way that she just holds herself with dignity, and the way that she goes about things. She's a real powerhouse, but she has a very softly kind of approach, very quiet, not screaming and shouting. It's just, but she really absolutely gets things done. So she would definitely be on my team as well. And then I think the third person would have to be somebody who could make us laugh, because I think actually changing the world is probably a quite serious undertaking, and I can imagine there'd probably be many moments where we'd need somebody to make us laugh. So I think my third choice would be Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I just think is incredible. I love her comedy. I loved Fleabag, obviously Killing Eve, and also she'd have the skills to be able to write speeches and bring her creativity into the mix. And I think she's just, I love her sense of humor. So so that would be my team.
That's an amazing one. I think that might be my favorite, actually.
Oh really? Okay, good. Well, you could be on my team as well then.
Yeah, I'd like to be part of this world.
I'm doing it.
I know, I think that's a really good one. It's interesting as well, because a lot of the interviews that we've done, they've picked kind of one politician, and then everybody's always put like a comedian in there just to kind of help things keep light. So I think yours is a very good balance, really well thought out, and I really like all of them. So yeah, I definitely like to be part of that world.
Good stuff.
Okay. So do you think that they would get on well as a team?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we gel really well. I think. Well, I say me in the mix. I think they would gel really well. I think I think the same the same mindsets. I think and the same goals, but phenomenally successful in their own right. I think
incredibly successful. Yeah, that's a really good one. That's my favorite. Okay. So the reason that we are doing this video series is to highlight equality and diversity by building these businesses that are essentially powered by people. So I know it's always been a topic of conversation, and you talk about it a lot in your podcasts and through the work that you do. But what is your take on equality in the industry at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think it's getting better, for sure. And I think the conversation is on the table. And so I think that's, those are definitely steps that are moving the needle in the right direction. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And my view is that actually we need to be bringing everyone into the conversation. I think the issue I have with some of the discussions that are being had at the moment is that they're mainly focused on, if we're talking about gender equality, mainly focused on women talking about it. And actually, I think it's really, really important to bring men into the conversation, because actually then, you know, we have, because I know there's lots of great guys and male leaders in the industry who absolutely agree with everything that we're talking about and the initiatives and things like that. And I think it's bringing them into the conversation. Otherwise, I think it alienates groups. I think it or keeps the conversation within one particular group, and I think which isn't helpful. So, so I think yes, we're definitely the awareness is getting better out there. The conversations are happening.
Do you think the right conversations are happening?
You know, my view is I think sometimes, obviously, I'm still aware of a lot of, let's call it, bad behaviour happening. I mean, I have a quite an extensive community on Twitter that I follow in the InfoSec community, and you know, almost on a weekly basis, I'm seeing people post things, you know, that they're having to put up with, or not having to put up with. They, you know, they are on the receiving end of some really horrendous behaviour still out there, and that needs to be called out. And it needs to be called out by both men and women.
It's not enough just for women to call this behaviour out. I think, you know, it's you know, if you're seeing, regardless of who it is, and it can work both ways as well, but I think regardless of who it is, if somebody is talking to somebody in a way that isn't acceptable, you know, actually step up and say something at the time. And ultimately, for me, I mean, as a business person, why wouldn't you, you know, want this? You know, it's proven that organizations who have a diverse workforce are usually 15 to 25% more successful as a business. So as a business person, it's important to have all these different.
Why wouldn't you want to embrace that? If there was a way of making your company more successful, then why would you want to put obstacles in the way of that? I think at leadership level, I think I'm seeing those types of challenges less. I tend to see them, they're more embedded further down within organizations, I think, and that's where the work needs to be done.
It is a problem everywhere. So I think if you're not seeing a problem in any aspect of your life, then you really are living under a rock, because it's not as if it's just this industry that has a problem. It is worldwide.
Absolutely, yeah. So to answer your question, I think we've definitely made gains. Still gains to go, obviously, and I think the best way of doing that is to bring as many different people into the conversation and to raise awareness and education, and to start calling things out when we see them. That's the best way, I think, to start sorting this out. So.
Okay, so if you were to think about the industry, and you know that you have your incredible dream team behind you, what would be the one thing that you would change? Would it be around the equality and having that conversation, or would it be something else?
I think right now, if there was one thing I could change in the industry, it would be the amount of abuse I see going on. I think of people within the industry. I think there's a real, almost an elitism and a snobbery going on about people and how technical they are and whether they have these technical skills or not. I mean, only in the last week, I've seen several people on Twitter, you know, post messages that they've received about, you know, their lack of competence in some area or their lack of technical skills. And quite frankly, I think the people that are doing that need to take a long, hard look at themselves as to why they're doing that, because I think if you're doing really well, you don't need to be putting other people down necessarily. And I think I think getting away from the stereotype about everybody in the industry needs to be technical, because absolutely that's not the case anymore. We need a wide variety of skills and people who are good at communicating, who are good at getting messages across. You know, we've talked a lot about cybersecurity cultures over the last couple of years, and we've still a way to go with that. And that's all about landing the message, getting people to care. You know, that's talked about a lot now amongst CISOs. And so we need a wide variety of thinkers, of backgrounds, of cultures, of different sectors in the industry, you know. So So if I could remove anything, it would be the trolling and the cyberbullying and the people hiding behind accounts that's going on at the moment. Because, well, one, it's absolutely a horrendous way to be behaving, and two, actually, you know, I'm not sure what it gains the person who's behind it, or whether they feel better about themselves. I don't know why it is, but I think it's removing that elitism and the snobbery around what you do and don't have, and let's just get the best people in the industry to make sure that we're in the best possible position to help businesses and organizations protect themselves against the threats out there. Isn't that why we're all here after all? So.
Do you think we will ever see this change in our lifetime, or do you think it will take a lot longer for that to be implemented?
Well, I think bullying is always, you know, I think whatever vector, I mean, it happens to be online at the moment, you know, bullying has been, you know, bullying, you always find bullying, and I suppose before it was trolling online, it would probably call something, you know, differently within organizations probably, but, you know, it's always been around, unfortunately. But I think it's people, like I say, calling behavior out, I think. Yeah. And if you know somebody is doing that, you know, I think to try and stop that. And then also, I think perhaps some of the social media platforms need to take more responsibility. I mean, I've seen people post something and then have their accounts blocked for something that seems very minor, and then yet other people who are actually receiving death threats and horrendous trolling, you know, they turn around and say, well, it's, you know, it's free speech, and we can't do anything about it. So I think maybe there's something that they need to have a look at there in terms of how they go about that. I don't know how that would happen, by the way, and it wouldn't be something I would want to take on in my dream team of changing the world. I need to hire a team of specialists to deal with that. But I think, yeah, I mean, I would hope so. And I think, again, the more we talk about it, or, you know, just provide those ways that people can flag that up, report that, and feel that they're being protected. Nobody should have to put up with that in any vector.
Well, no. And I think hopefully that there is a little bit of a movement with this, just in terms of the society and social media platforms. So hopefully it will seep into industry and into corporations. But yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a pandemic in itself, the sort of online trolling that happens just everywhere at the moment. Yeah. So if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self who's just starting off in their career, what would you say to yourself?
I'm quite lucky, really, because I don't have many regrets, really, to do with my career. I mean, obviously there's things I would have, you know, you do differently at times and things like that, you know, and everyone does have regrets, but I don't have loads of them. Yeah. And there aren't a few key you know, instances that I think, gosh, I really wish I'd done something differently. So I think this is something that I think probably comes with age and a bit of experience, but I think it's probably to trust myself a bit more and perhaps to stop being as much of a people pleaser. I think I think I've been guilty of that in my past career, and you know, occasionally it comes in even now, and so I think it's to be more confident and to trust myself and my instincts a lot more, but again, as I say, that those are the things that tend to come with a little bit of water under the bridge and a bit of experience and a bit of time, and it's very hard, I think, when you're starting out your career to do that, but yeah, it would definitely be those. I think to trust myself more and to stop trying to please people, because I think when you do that, actually the person who ends up at the back of the queue tends to be you. So.
Yeah. And did you know what you wanted to do from a young age? I know that on your podcast at one point you said that you were considering being a nurse, and then you didn't want to after doing a placement or something in a hospital.
Yeah, I always thought initially when I was young, I always thought I was going to go into some sort of caring profession. Hence the kind of, I was interested in, I was nursing and then possibly physiotherapy and things. And then as I got a bit older, I was really interested in going into journalism, actually. So that's what I wanted to do I did my degree in English. Yeah. I wrote my dissertation on Jane Austen, which is about as far removed from cybersecurity as you can possibly get. And, you know, I was looking for a career in that area when I graduated, and then I happened to, I needed a job, or I wanted a start working quite quickly after I left uni. I wanted to be financially independent.
Yeah.
And so I got a job working for an information security company, and I thought, well, I'll do this for a while until I find a proper job. And that was 22 years ago now. So the industry really pulled me in and captivated me, and and I've loved it, and that's why I've stayed. But definitely more on the writing side. I think I've always I wanted to be a war correspondent. Actually, I was always Kate AD always fascinated me when I was kind of like in my late teens, and I always thought perhaps I'd go into writing or journalism or something. So, but
did you understand the careers out there when you were younger? Because I feel like I didn't really know what was out there, except the being a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher and things like that. And I did English at university as well, and when I came out of that, I was like, I don't even know the careers that are here. So I guess especially in cyber, like, did you understand the careers that were out there?
Hell no. I wish somebody had come in and talked about perhaps more a wider variety of opportunities and things like that. The sad thing is, I think even if they had, the area that they definitely wouldn't have come in and spoken about would have been information security. It wouldn't have even been, I think, to be honest, if somebody come in and talked about computer sciences, I probably wouldn't have been interested in it. I think there is a lot of work to do. I'm involved in a lot of leadership organizations where there are a lot of educators there, and I spend a lot of time talking to them, and information security and cybersecurity as an industry is completely off their radar, I think, in terms of potential career options for the students at their schools or colleges. And so I spend a lot of time talking about what the opportunities are, and the variety of jobs. I think there's still very little information out there about some of these industries that are really crying out for people to come into them. And
I know, and I guess that's where you need to start as well, at that level, because if people go into things not knowing that information security is even an option, then that's where you're going to have to kind of do the cross-skilling eventually. But I think obviously one easy target would be teaching these students that there is a career in that, and that's something that they can consider. But obviously this whole campaign is around extraordinary people inspiring change. So I'm so interested to know, who is the single most extraordinary person to have inspired change in your life?
Can I have two?
Yes, yeah.
Good, because otherwise you would have made me have to pick between my parents, which would have been awkward. I mean, I don't know about change necessarily, but the two people who've inspired my life really are my mum and dad. I think I'm really lucky because I come from a really long line of strong women. I've got generations of very strong, ferociously strong grandmothers, and and it goes back generation and generation. So I'm really lucky in that respect. And my mum has got the most phenomenal work ethic of anyone I've ever met in my entire life, and that I've definitely got my grafting instincts from her. And that's one of the things that kind of was described about myself, is I'm a grafter and I work hard, and that definitely comes from her. But the thing I think that's made the big difference with them was that they didn't ever put any limitations on what I could do, and they also didn't put any high expectations either, in a positive way, as in
I think
what my mum and dad drilled into me, or my mum particularly, is the only thing you can do is to do your best, and as long as you know that you've done your best, that's all you can do, whatever the outcome is. And I've just held on to that, and that's what I've kind of lived with in my career for the last 22 years, is actually, am I doing my best? Can I do more? And if I've done my best, then actually to be at peace with the fact that whatever the outcome is, I've really tried my hardest. And I think that's been the most motivating and freeing thing that I think you can be told, really. So they are definitely the people who've inspired me the most, because I think they've been my champions and cheerleaders. And I think to be a daughter of parents who have told you to shoot for the stars, and to absolutely take whatever role that comes that you you want to, and been nothing but supportive, I think is phenomenal. And I think if we see more of that, I think we will see, you know, amazing people come into the industry who've got this right support behind them, and a really good positive mindset. And I've got my parents to thank for that. So they would be my two amazing, inspiring people in my life. So
good, that's a good answer. A lot of people say their mum, actually, so it's really nice. I love listening to the stories. But no, I think that's a really good message. I think especially at such a young age, there's so much pressure about what you're going to do in your career, and I think that can sort of cripple you sometimes into being like, oh my god, you need to reach for that kind of expectation. But I think it's really important to have that support behind you, that they're just like, as long as you're happy, you've tried your best, there's not much more that you need to aim for, really. So I think that's a really good message.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think that whole ethos of doing your best, really, I think that's been a checkpoint for me throughout my whole career. Is you know, you're the only person in your life who knows, have I actually, in this scenario, have I done my absolute best? And you always know when you haven't, and you could have done more. And then, you know, you need to go off and learn from that and have a bit of a word, you know, take yourself outside, have a word with yourself, you know, come back in. But if you have, then, you know, actually you've got to be at peace with the fact that you, within your capability and what you know and your effort and your hard work, you've done as much as you can. And I think that's all anyone can ever ask from you, really. So so that's that's the thing that I hold in my, and that, you know, hold in my mind, and that's been drilled into me from, you know, a very, very young age. So I'm grateful to them for that.